Suddenly, the air behind her distorted. There was no sound of footsteps, only a sudden change in atmospheric pressure. A chill ran down the scientist's spine. "Looks like I was lucky to find you alone." A female voice, sweet but laden with venomous malice, floated through the air. Bulma turned sharply, letting the tracker fall to the ground. Before her, enveloped in an aura of superiority, stood a figure with pale skin and eyes that gleamed with an insatiable hunger. You're 21, exclaimed Bulma, taking a trembling step back. The woman let out a short, dry, icy laugh. She tilted her head to the side, and her mocking expression turned into pure contempt. "Oh, for God's sake, don't call me by that useless woman's name," she hissed, her eyes narrowing. "That good part is a mistake, a remnant of weakness that will soon be devoured." The villain stepped forward, the energy pulsing oppressively. "If you want to use a name, use my real one. I am Dr. Gero's wife, call me Vomi." The silence that followed was absolute. Bulma felt the weight of the revelation. The Red Ribbon's past wasn't just returning, it had evolved into something far hungrier than any android they had ever faced. Vomi walked in circles around Bulma, like a predator assessing prey that has nowhere to escape. The crackle of pink energy emanating from his hands illuminated the pale face of the scientist, who remained paralyzed, but with her eyes fixed on the threat. "I could turn you into a simple piece of chocolate right now and be done with it," Vomi said, running his tongue over his lips in a disturbing way. "But it wouldn't be fun. Your Bulma briefs. From my data, from the Red Ribbon data I inherited, I know exactly who you are." Bulma clenched her fists, fear beginning to be replaced by growing indignation. "If you know who I am, you know I'm not afraid of people like you," Bulma retorted, though her voice trembled slightly. Vomi let out a muffled laugh, ignoring the challenge. Her eyes gleamed with a sickly light as she gazed at the horizon, where the flashes of Goku's battles could still be seen. "I saw how close you are to him, to Son Goku." Vomi's tone shifted to something darker and more anxious. "Ah, how I long to devour that warrior. He must be so succulent. The energy emanating from him, the pure power, it must taste divine." Hearing those words the way Vomi spoke of Goku as if he were merely a feast to satisfy her twisted desires made Bulma's blood boil. You freak!" Bulma screamed. A vein bulged on the scientist's forehead, and a giant hatred flashed in her blue eyes. She wasn't a fighter, she didn't have the power of a Super Saiyan, but that woman's audacity in threatening her friends and treating Goku like food awakened a fury that surpassed any survival instinct. Vomi stopped walking and smiled, relishing the anger he had provoked. Vomi took a slow step, closing the distance between the two. The smile on her face wasn't just malicious, it was one of almost scientific satisfaction. She leaned in, whispering close to Bulma's ear, her voice a blend of a wife's gentleness and a machine's coldness. "You love him, don't you? That romantic, deep love." Vomi paused dramatically, her eyes gleaming with ancient intelligence. "Don't think I don't know that feeling. I am Dr. Gero's wife, after all. I know what devotion is, and I know what loss is." Bulma felt her heart race, not from fear, but from an indignation that made her hands tremble. "That's exactly why I'm not going to turn you into chocolate now," Vomi continued, straightening up and opening her arms. "It would be a waste. What I really want, what will give me the greatest pleasure in the world, is to turn Son Goku, your precious love, into a sweet treat right in front of you. I want you to taste despair while I devour you." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Bulma's heavy breathing. An aura of pure indignation red heart seemed to emanate from the scientist. That insult to her history, to the years of friendship, and to the feelings she harbored, was too much. She had never felt such immense hatred in her entire life, it was a burning sensation that came from the depths of her soul. Vomi let out a shrill laugh, watching the veins bulge on Bulma's face. "I struck a nerve, didn't I?" Vomi said, using English to mock her, laughing at the human's reaction. "I touched a nerve. Look at you, so small, so powerless, and overflowing with a hatred you can't even express. It's delicious." Bulma clenched her teeth so hard that her jaw ached. You wretch." Bulma's voice came out in a dangerous whisper. "You have no idea what happens when you mess with a Saiyan's family, or with a woman who has the resources of Capsule Corporation." Vomi circled slowly around Bulma, letting out a nasal, rhythmic laugh that echoed through the ruins. The contempt in her gaze was almost palpable. "That's exactly why I'm not going to kill you now. This is proving to be far more satisfying than I imagined," Vomi said, adjusting her glasses with an elegant, cold gesture. "Look at us, the two smartest scientists in the world. But, you know, Bulma, you're despicable. Pathetic." Vomi stopped right in front of Bulma, staring into her eyes with an expression of absolute superiority. "You love Goku, but you're married to that appetizer called the Prince of Saiyans." She let out a genuine, mocking laugh. "We both know the truth, don't we? We're both much more interested in Son Goku. He's the perfect specimen, the pinnacle of strength, the main course." Bulma felt the impact of those words like a punch to the stomach. The hatred she felt now was something physical, a pressure in her chest that prevented her from breathing properly. You know what will give me the most satisfaction? Vomi continued, her voice becoming a honeyed, dark whisper. It's devouring that juicy Gaku while you watch on your knees. And best of all, you'll die without ever having had the chance to tell him how much you love him. He'll disappear into my stomach, and you'll be left with silence. Bulma was panting, her face red with fury and her heart pounding so hard it hurt. She had never felt such immense hatred, such a primal urge to destroy someone. I'm going to. Bulma began, her voice faltering from the intensity of the emotion, before exploding in a scream, I'm going to kill you. Vomi just smiled. It wasn't a smile of fear, but the smile of someone who had just won a game. She continued laughing, reveling in the sight of the brilliant Bulma briefs reduced to a state of blind rage. Vomi crossed her arms over her chest, observing Bulma from head to toe with a look of pure boredom, as if she were looking at an insect that refuses to be crushed. You know what makes you even more pathetic? Vomi leaned forward, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You're nothing but a human. If you tried to punch me now, your arm would break before it even touched my skin. You're so fragile, you were even eaten by Super Bu, weren't you? You turned into candy without even being able to fight. Vomi let out a shrill laugh, the sound echoing through the ruins of West City. The funniest thing is that you think you're important. You could be my worthy enemy, just like the Emperor of the Universe or Son Goku, but you're nothing. You depend on your son Trunks, you depend on Goku and Vegeta to breathe. Without them, you're just dust. Bulma felt the hatred red heart burning like lava in her veins. Every word from Vomi was an open wound. The insult to her intelligence, her worth, and her independence struck her where it hurt most. But Vomi wasn't finished yet. That's why I'm not just going to eat Goku. Vomi's eyes gleamed with a sick malice. When I absorb him, he will live inside me, again and again. He will feel every slap, every punch, every scream, and every curse of yours that is engraved in my memories, until the end of his eternity. He will be mine, and you won't be able to do anything about it. Bulma was trembling, her face bathed in sweat, and tears of pure fury beginning to burn in her eyes. She had never felt such immense hatred in her entire life. I thought that, with all your brilliant intelligence, you'd be married to Gaku, but you weren't even good for that. Vomi finished, with a scornful smile. You know why? Because, deep down, you're nothing but a spoiled little girl who never gets what she really wants. The silence that followed was terrifying. Bulma was on the verge of losing her sanity, wounded in every possible way by the venomous words of Dr. Gero's wife. Bulma remained motionless. Her eyes were fixed on a crack in the asphalt, but she couldn't see the ground. Vomi's words echoed in her mind like hammer blows, useless appetizer, fragile human. Goodbye, Bulma. Live with this humiliation, Vomi's voice still seemed to float in the air, laden with a poison that no Capsule Corporation medicine could cure.